Okay, close your eyes for just a moment. Try and picture Washington, D.C. back in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Can you sort of feel it? That humid air, kind of heavy with, I don't know, ambition. Maybe the faint smell of stale cigar smoke from those K Street power lunches.
Hmm.
You're walking through those cool, echoing marble corridors on Capitol Hill, right? Fluorescent lights humming overhead, casting this, like, sterile glow on interns rushing past, clutching their lattes and these folders just bursting with policy papers.
Yeah, it's a city of facades, isn't it? Every conversation feels like it's got a hidden layer. Every smile could be, a negotiation starting.
Exactly. And just outside those halls, the power beat goes on. You've got the black town cars lined up like silent sentinels, engines idling, drivers maybe dozing, ready to whisk some senator or official off to another fundraiser, dripping with PAC money.
You can almost hear the ice clinking in glasses at the Palm, or maybe the Mayflower. Lobbyists lingering over their drinks, voices low, words very precise. It's just thick with influence, aspiration, and, I think, critically, secrets. This was such a different Washington, a different world than we know today.
Totally different. Because this era, it wasn't about quick swipes on Tinder or, disappearing snaps. Hookups, connections, the kind that happen way outside public view. They were strictly, rigorously clandestine.
Right.
I mean, imagine the stakes, just sheer terrifying stakes.
Yeah.
One slip, one careless whisper overheard somewhere, one name scribbled on a napkin that gets into the wrong hands, and your whole legacy, everything you've built could just vanish, poof, up in smoke.
Because in that town, as our sources really hammer home, vice isn't just a personal failing. It's like currency. It's a form of power.
But morality, that's the weapon, that's the tool that people use to control, to leverage, sometimes to just utterly destroy careers.
It's the great Washington paradox, right? The city projects this image of moral rectitude, built on ideals, public service, but it thrives on the very things it condemns. And right into the heart of this charged, almost theatrical environment comes this figure nobody expected, Deborah Jeane Palfrey. Later, the infamous D.C. Madam.
Yeah, and she wasn't the stereotype you'd imagine. Our sources say no fur coat, no obvious sleeves, just described as a smart, incredibly stubborn woman.
And her most powerful tool, not some high-tech gadget, it was a battered spiral notebook, simple analog, her black book.
Her black book, what a name, huh? It just screams intrigue, hidden power. And the sources tell us she kept it not really out of malice, not trying to expose people initially, but pragmatically to protect herself.
Right, it started as self-preservation.
But this wasn't just a ledger. In her hands, that simple notebook became, well, a hand grenade. And the crucial part, she knew precisely when and how to pull that pin. You could almost feel the tension, the paranoia rippling through Capitol Hill back then. Young staffers, sneaking glances at a name maybe leaked in the paper, then nervously looking at their boss. The idea that any name might be in that book was enough, the source says, to turn a marble statue into a sweating, stammering mess.
You could just picture it. And for a split second, maybe there was this desperate hope. Right, this time maybe this swamp might finally drain itself. This scandal could be the one.
Of course it didn't.
Of course it didn't. And that immediate, almost cynical reality check our sources give us, well, it sets the stage perfectly for this recurring pattern we're digging into today. A pattern showing how resilient the system is.
Yeah.
How it just absorbs these shocks.
Exactly. So today we're doing a unique deep dive into two stories that are deeply connected, maybe uncomfortably so. Deborah Jeane Palfrey, and later Jeffrey Epstein. Because history might not repeat exactly, but it sure does rhyme. And we're here to explore that striking, often chilling pattern in Washington's hidden corners, that pattern of secrets, power, and information that just stays buried.
Our mission today is to pull out the key insights from the sources you've provided. We're focusing on those surprising parallels, right? The ways power works behind the scenes, the ways it endures, and what these stories really tell us about secrets, information, accountability, or maybe the lack of it in D.C.
Yeah, we're looking for those aha moments, the things that help you get up to speed quickly on a topic that, let's be honest, a lot of people would rather keep hidden. So let's unpack this. Let's really set the scene first. Okay, so let's really dive back into that atmosphere. Late 90s, rolling into the early 2000s, Washington, D.C. Our sources paint this picture not just of a city, but like an ecosystem.
Yeah.
You've got the gleaming marble monuments, but also the hushed, maybe conspiratorial conversations happening inside those walls. Think Capitol Hill. The frantic rush of interns, contrasted with these serious-looking officials moving deliberately through back hallways past all those imposing oil portraits. It feels steeped in tradition, gravitas, purpose.
But underneath that veneer, the reality of how things actually work was quite different. Like you said, this was before easy digital connections. No Tinder, no Snapchat, no encrypted apps for secret meetings.
Right.
So connections, especially the illicit kind, had to be meticulously, painstakingly secret. They absolutely had to be. The stakes were just astronomical.
One mistake, a name written down, a slip of the tongue, an overheard chat, and boom, career shattered, reputation gone, legacy extinguished. Instantly.
Yeah, the consequences were immediate, often just irreversible.
And that's that core dynamic, isn't it? The source hammers it. Vice is currency, but morality is a weapon. Let's just sit with that for a second.
Sure.
People's indiscretions, their private lives clashing with their public image. That's not just personal baggage. It becomes leverage, something to be traded, used against you. And in a town built on image, reputation, perceived morality, the power to expose someone's secrets is immense. Devastating control. That's how power really works in the shadows.
Absolutely. Secrets aren't just burdens. They're assets in this high-stakes game. And then into this charged, almost claustrophobic world steps Deborah Jeane Palfrey. Like the source says, a woman nobody expected.
Yeah, not the stereotype.
No fur coats, no sleaze. Just described as smart, stubborn, competent in a, well, let's say an unsanctified profession.
And her main tool, the thing that sent tremors through the city, was that battered spiral notebook, the Black Book. Not high-tech, just tangible, analog, seemingly harmless.
But inside, she meticulously recorded names, dates, hotel suites, cash paid. It was a detailed, accurate ledger of discretion, of illicit encounters.
And the key part, the why. The source is explicit. She kept these records to protect herself.
Exactly. It wasn't initially about blackmail. It was defense, operational security in a sensitive business.
But that act of self-preservation, that meticulous record-keeping, it turned the notebook into, as the source says, a hand grenade. And she didn't just have it. She understood its power. She knew exactly when to pull the pin, when to use it as a deterrent, or later, maybe as retaliation. This wasn't just notes. It was a strategic weapon hanging over powerful heads.
And the ripple effect on the Hill when this book became known, you described it as palpable, almost sickening. Staffers pale, glancing at leaked names, then worried looks at their boss. The idea that any powerful name could be in that book was enough to turn a marble statue into a sweating, stammering mess. It just shows the paralyzing terror of exposure in a city built on appearances.
And for that brief moment, that flicker of hope, maybe this time the exposure, the hypocrisy revealed would force a real reckoning. This swamp might finally drain itself.
But then the immediate, sobering reality check, of course it didn't.
Yeah.
And that quick dismissal really sets up the pattern we're exploring. It suggests the system, the mechanisms of power and secrecy in D.C. are so deeply rooted they can just absorb even the most explosive revelations. The swamp's infrastructure is just incredibly resilient.
So let's get into the specifics of Deborah Jeane Palfrey's operation, Pamela Martin Associates. She actually started it back in the early 90s. And it was, as our source puts it so politely, DC's polite euphemism for call girls you could trust not to ruin you.
That last part is key, isn't it? Trust not to ruin you.
Absolutely. It wasn't about extortion. It was about discretion for a very specific clientele.
It really is. And it's a crucial difference between Palfrey's operation and, well, many others, especially later ones. This wasn't, like you said, a stereotypical street-level thing.
Right.
Her clients were high-end. Politicians, senior government officials, military officers, lobbyists, businessmen.
Right.
And the services, the providers, were equally high-end. Educated women, often students or former models, providing fantasy companionship in upscale rooms. This wasn't quick encounters in cheap motels.
No.
The sources stress she didn't run dirty motel rooms. She ran discreet townhouse visits and outcalls to luxury suites in D.C.'s best hotels. It points to a sophisticated market. And she understood what her clients needed most: discretion, reliability, and a certain level of, class that matched their public image.
And a really crucial distinction the sources make, almost like they knew Epstein was coming later, is that this was strictly for consenting adults. The source says it flat out, yes, no minors, no blackmail, just grown men paying to cheat quietly.
That detail is so important. It sets Palfrey apart, morally and legally, from the much darker stuff later. She was providing an illicit service, yes, but based on adult consent, focusing on secrecy, not coercion or exploiting kids. It was about quiet infidelity, not blackmail schemes involving minors.
And that focus on secrecy directly led to her meticulous record keeping. This wasn't casual notes, it was meticulous records, a spiral notebook, phone logs, client notes, detailed entries, names, dates, addresses, call durations, even preferences.
Yeah, and not just for business like any company might have. It was her shield, her self-preservation. So when the IRS and the feds finally showed up in 2006, they weren't just seeing a standard vice case. The sheer detail, the organization, the names, dates, locations, payments, it wasn't just evidence of a crime. They immediately saw it as a blueprint for blackmail.
Think about that phrase, a blueprint for blackmail. That's terrifying. The authorities instantly recognized the potential for this information to be weaponized on a huge scale.
And Palfrey knew the power she held. Her defiant stance, publicly stated over and over, became her rallying cry. If I'm going down, they're all going down with me.
That phrase just captures the threat, doesn't it? Not just to her, but to the powerful figures who used her service. It wasn't just her legal fight. It was about exposing the hypocrisy at the highest levels in D.C. She dared to pull back the curtain.
And that's exactly why her black book scared the swamp half to death. Washington thrives on that image of moral rectitude, especially from leaders pushing family values. This book, with its undeniable, documented proof of secret activities, directly threatened the clean veneer that moralists like to drape over the city's oldest habits.
It wasn't just one scandal you could contain.
No, it was an existential threat to the whole facade, the self-image of moral authority. It stripped away the pretense, revealing the rot and hypocrisy underneath. The fear wasn't just about the sex, it was about the exposure of the hypocrisy.
So the Black Book is out there, its existence known, this ticking time bomb. You'd think a client list from an operation like Pamela Martin Associates with powerful DC figures on it would just completely turn the city upside down, right?
You would absolutely think that. Our source even asked that exact question. You'd think a list that big would flip the city upside down.
And then the blunt, cynical answer, but it didn't.
And that's where you see the chilling mechanics of the swamp at work. Our sources say the swamp ate the evidence. Such a vivid metaphor. Like, the environment itself has this built-in way to absorb, neutralize, and bury inconvenient truths.
Yeah.
The media, which initially dangled a few nuggets, just enough juicy details to grab headlines and spark some outrage, ultimately turned the page. The intense scrutiny, the initial anger was carefully managed, and it just faded. The news cycle moved on, maybe with a little help.
And the final outcome. The summary just drives it home. A sacrificial lamb or two, a sealed record, back to business.
Chilling.
It confirms that despite the huge potential for disruption, for a real reckoning, the system did its triage ruthlessly. A few people were exposed, a few careers ended publicly, but the overall structure, the swamp itself, remained untouched, its roots maybe even deeper.
And the source states it clearly. Nobody truly powerful took the big fall. That one sentence tells you everything about where the real power lies and how good it is at protecting itself and its key players from real accountability.
And when you look at the specific examples from that time, this pattern of selective accountability gets even clearer, almost painfully obvious, like Randall Tobias.
Right. Prominent guy in the Bush administration, the aide czar. And the irony, as the source says, it wrote itself. The guy who pushed abstinence-only policy was found dialing escorts from his government phone. His downfall was immediate, swift, decisive, gone overnight. He became one of those classic sacrificial lambs, high profile enough that his removal looked like action was taken, but it shut down wider questions.
And then the complete contrast. Senator David Vitter, Mr. Family Values from Louisiana. Staunch conservative, always campaigning on moral purity. He also got outed for using Palfrey's service.
But remarkably, almost inexplicably if you're just watching from the outside, he was then reelected.
How does that happen?
Well, the source gives the reason bluntly. Because when you're God-fearing and red enough, the base forgives anything so long as you keep the receipts sealed. He's framed as the hypocrite who survived, almost a legend in D.C. And maybe more tellingly, the patron saint of, if you stay loyal, the machine forgives you. His case shows a different but equally powerful side of the swamp's self-protection, not just burying evidence, but strategically forgiving those who are useful, as long as they stay loyal.
So Tobias and Vitter together, they perfectly illustrate this nuanced, selective accountability. One falls hard, career gone. The other, despite the same kind of exposure, weathers it, rebounds, keeps his power.
Yeah, it really suggests survival isn't just about what you did, but about this complex calculation. Your political usefulness, your base's loyalty, and critically, the machine's ability and willingness to protect its own, especially the loyal ones. It's a stark lesson in how scandal really plays out in D.C., far from public expectations of fairness.
Okay, this brings us to a core metaphor our sources use, one that really ties these stories together, showing them as part of a bigger, unsettling pattern. The cicada brood. The D.C. Madam story isn't just some historical footnote, just a prequel to Epstein. It's presented as proof that every so often the swarm rises from the mulch. And what's striking, almost scary in its consistency, is it's always the same shape, same smell, same hush.
It's this recurring pattern, this predictable cycle of revelation and containment. That's the key theme here. It suggests something fundamental and unchanging about how Washington works.
It's a powerful analogy, isn't it? Cicadas emerging after years underground, only to go back. It really underscores the idea that despite all the marble and myths, the grand speeches, Washington fundamentally runs on backroom deals, closed doors, and names that never appear on the record.
Exactly. Those hidden deals, secret agreements, they aren't exceptions. They're the bedrock, the invisible scaffolding of influence.
So just like those cicadas popping up predictably once every decade or two, it's chillingly consistent. Some black book or flight log bubbles to the surface. It's this almost inevitable eruption of secrets, a temporary breach in the facade.
And the predictable outcome, which we saw with Palfrey's limited fallout, is just eerily, depressingly consistent. It's like a script that plays out over and over.
Yeah, the narrative, as the sources lay it out, is almost pre-written. People gasp, names leak, a few petty heads roll. There's that momentary shock, the public outrage, the feeling that this time it'll be different, real change is coming.
But then, almost always, with this chilling efficiency, the machine eats the evidence and moves on. The system, the swamp, just shows this incredible, almost pathological ability to absorb the shock, neutralize the threat, and keep functioning, seemingly unfazed. It's deeply cynical, but according to our sources, alarmingly accurate.
And this is where Palfrey becomes more than just another D.C. scandal. She didn't just reveal names. She was the one who cracked the facade with nothing more than a battered notebook and the courage to say, if I go down, I take you all with me. Her importance isn't just who she exposed, but the deeper truth she revealed about the system itself. She didn't just show names. She inadvertently, maybe intentionally, revealed the formula for how these scandals are managed, contained, and neutralized. She showed us the playbook.
And our source breaks down this formula into 3 chillingly precise points. First, the press will get a taste, but never the feast. Meaning information is carefully controlled. Just enough leaks out to satisfy the public's immediate hunger, create headlines, maybe quell some outrage. But never the full story, never enough to really dismantle the system or expose its roots. Think how often we get hints, but never the full, unredacted picture.
Okay. Second point, which we saw with Tobias, a few scapegoats will hang, but never the real architects.
Right, the systemic triage. Someone takes the fall, often someone high profile, to appease the public demand for accountability, but the masterminds, the truly powerful figures pulling strings, the architects of the system enabling it all, they stay hidden, shielded. It's a strategic sacrifice to protect the larger structure.
And the third part of the formula, maybe the most cynical, the moralists who run your town are the filthiest ones in the room.
This cuts right to the heart of DC's power structure. It suggests those who preach morality loudest, who build careers on virtue and family values, are often the ones most deeply involved in the very things they condemn. It reinforces that idea of morality as a weapon, a tool for control, not a genuine principle. It's a devastating indictment of the hypocrisy that lets the swamp operate.
So when you read about this stuff, when you can almost smell the swamp gas in these pages, as the source says, you're meant to remember. Epstein may be the punchline now, but Palfrey was the warning shot. She wasn't just a forgotten scandal. She was the precursor, the blueprint, the grim prophecy for a pattern that would come back even darker. The warning is clear. Every cicada cycle, the brood returns, and every time, the swamp keeps humming right along. It's this cycle of revelation and cynical re-entrenchment. The system adapts, but never fundamentally changes. Okay, this next part is, It's really chilling. It connects Palfrey's story to the bigger picture in a way that feels almost like foreshadowing. Our sources highlight Deborah Jeane Palfrey's repeated, very public statements about not wanting to harm herself. She swore she'd never kill herself, said it on the radio, in interviews to her lawyers. The message was crystal clear, meant to be heard. I will not do it. This wasn't vague. It was a firm, repeated declaration, almost a plea to be believed, trying to counter any future story.
And then, despite those strong public denials, just weeks after her conviction, the tragic reality. Found hanging in her mother's shed in Florida. The official ruling after a brief investigation. Suicide by hanging. On the surface, a clear, if tragic and convenient, end to her story. Case closed.
But our source goes much, much deeper than the official story. It brings up this profound, unofficial link between her death and a phrase, a meme really, that would explode into popular culture a decade later. Unofficially, the source says, she was the template for a meme that metastasized a decade later. Epstein didn't kill himself.
Wow. Quite a statement.
It's not presented as just a coincidence. It's this unsettling assertion that her death somehow laid the groundwork for the pervasive public distrust that erupted years later with Epstein.
And the language the source uses is incredibly blunt, stark. She was the dry run for that line, the test case.
Yeah.
That's not a vague theory. It suggests a deeply unsettling pattern, almost a playbook. It implies that the convenient death of someone holding compromising information sets a precedent for how these situations are seen by the public. It makes you ask, was her death seen as a successful way to silence inconvenient truths? So successful it became cultural shorthand for suspicion when powerful people die mysteriously.
It forces you to consider why that Epstein meme gained such traction so quickly. Was it just organic? Or did Palfrey's case provide this chilling precedent for public skepticism?
It's a disturbing thought.
And this leads us right into the Epstein echo. While Palfrey's operation, as we established, dealt with consenting adults within a specific illicit framework, the shift to Jeffrey Epstein's world is, well, it's a horrific escalation.
Absolutely horrific, exponentially so. Our source makes the distinction starkly. Epstein traded high-class call girls for underage girls, flight logs, and compromat safes. The very nature of the crime changed fundamentally, moving from adult vice to the exploitation of children.
And the scale expanded too. Palfrey was mostly D.C.-focused, serving that local political and business elite. Epstein's operations spanned Palm Beach, Manhattan, Little St. James.
Yeah, a much broader global footprint, suggesting a bigger network, deeper international connections, a more diverse and powerful clientele. And just like Palfrey, he was meticulous, almost obsessive with records. He kept names too, the little black book, the flight logs, the sealed deposition tapes.
But these weren't just ledgers. They were tools of leverage, control, potential blackmail, amplified hugely by the criminal nature of his activities. The compromising material wasn't just about money. It was about power and control over influential people.
Our sources stress Epstein was so much darker and so much bigger, not just the number of victims, but the complexity of his operation. His ring apparently ran on kids, on leverage, on international spook rumor mill gossip.
That points to a far more complex, dangerous web, right? Orchestrated blackmail, maybe even intelligence connections. It elevates the scale way beyond Palfrey. It's systematic exploitation designed to gain and maintain power over a huge network.
And yet, despite the massive differences in what they were doing, the shift from adult encounters to child exploitation, the same script played out with shocking precision. The pattern from Palfrey's Black Book recurred with Epstein. We saw names teased, a few leaks, no full reveal. Just like before, tantalizing glimpses, agonizing whispers of who was involved, but the full picture, frustratingly hidden, never really came to light. The system, again, showed its mastery of information control.
And then the ultimate, most disturbing echo cementing that test case idea we talked about. Epstein found dead in a cell, no camera saw, guards asleep, tapes gone.
Chilling. That sequence directly mirrors the skepticism around Palfrey's death. The circumstances of Epstein's death immediately raised huge questions, fueled massive public distrust, and launched that meme. The official story met with instant, persistent skepticism.
And the contrast in the impact of the two scandals is really telling about how the swamp evolved its defenses. The source notes, one black book cracked the Capitol. Palfrey's records caused real fear, some real fallout.
Right. Limited, but real.
But Epstein's trove, his book, logs, tapes, arguably far more damaging, implicating global figures, another never even got opened.
It highlights the enduring, maybe even more refined power of the swamp. to protect itself, suppress information, avoid a real reckoning, even facing what should have been an unprecedented crisis. It suggests the mechanisms of control got even more sophisticated between the two events. The system learned. It adapted.
Okay. In this really intricate, high-stakes game of secrets and power, there are always key players, right? A cast of characters popping up in this swamp story, as our sources call it.
Definitely.
First, Deborah Jeane Palfrey herself, the OG Madam. The source describes her not as some shadowy blackmailer or agent, but just a stubborn woman who thought her list made her bulletproof. And tragically, she was wrong. Her story is kind of a lesson in the naive hope that simple truth can beat entrenched power.
Then Randall Tobias, presented as the abstinence crusader. Public persona built on morality, private actions totally opposite. He's the first domino to fall after Palfrey's list surfaced. A classic example of the system sacrificing one high-profile person to contain the damage. His quick exit looked like accountability, but didn't shake the foundations.
And contrast him sharply with David Vitter, Mr. Family Values from Louisiana. He's the hypocrite who survived, a rare telling exception. And more pointedly, still the patron saint of, if you stay loyal, the machine forgives you.
Right. His survival highlights that selective, politically calculated accountability. Loyalty, it seems, often trumps morality in the swamp.
Jeffrey Epstein is chillingly called the evolution. He represents that dark progression from Palfrey's world. Kids instead of consenting adults, private islands instead of town cars, compromat instead of hotel receipts. He's the amplified global version of these patterns, embodying a much more disturbing international network of exploitation and leverage.
His key enabler, Ghislaine Maxwell, is identified as the facilitator, the fixer, the madam for a darker age. She reportedly made his operations possible, the orchestrator, the shadowy infrastructure behind it all. A crucial figure.
We also see figures like Pam Bondi described as the "I have the files, oh wait, maybe I don't" talking head. This seems to highlight the performative aspect, right? Officials promising big revelations that often fizzle out, files disappear or are less significant than claimed. A deflection tactic.
And then people like Cash Patel and Bongino presented as the insiders saying there's no list, which, interestingly, doesn't stop the suspicion. It only makes people want it more. Their denials seem to fuel the public's distrust and hunger for the hidden truth. It's like reverse psychology.
Finally, Elon Musk gets a mention as the jilted mega-donor, swears he'll burn the swamp that just keeps burning him. This points to a wider frustration, even among powerful outsiders, with how impenetrable and self-protective the DC system is.
Yeah, each of these characters, in their own way, illustrates some facet of this complex game played when dark secrets surface. It shows how different people navigate or fail to navigate the swamp's treacherous waters.
Now, when we talk about these deep hidden currents in Washington, the line between rumor and reality gets really blurry, doesn't it? The amount of speculation around these figures, these scandals, is just huge.
Oh, absolutely. And our sources tackle some of the most persistent whispers,
Yeah.
then offer these blunt reality checks, kind of leaving you to connect the dots yourself.
Right, like with Palfrey, the rumor that she had Pentagon generals and agency guys as clients, top military and intelligence people. The source's reality, ambiguous, probably true, most never confirmed, all conveniently sealed.
It's not a denial. It acknowledges it's likely, but then cynically points to the system burying sensitive info, making it impossible to confirm.
And the other big Palfrey rumor, she was silenced to save the Bush admin. The reality offered is less definitive, but just as suggestive. She was an inconvenient loose end. You decide.
Yeah, that you decide. It doesn't give an answer, but it leaves the door wide open. It implies maybe there's no direct proof, but the motive, the political convenience was certainly there. It forces you to think about the circumstances.
Moving to Epstein, the huge rumor. Epstein was a Mossad or CIA asset, fueled by the sheer power of his network. The source's reality check. Again, intriguing. Nobody's proved it, but that townhouse was wired for something.
Again, not confirming, not denying, but pointing to circumstantial evidence, the heavily wired property that fuels the very speculation it's addressing, suggests maybe something covert was going on beyond just vice.
And the pervasive rumor that the Clintons and Trump knew the dirt, that these powerful, often opposing figures knew about Epstein's activities or secrets, the source's response. Everyone knew something. The real question is who had the tapes.
That subtly shifts the focus, doesn't it? From just knowing to possessing actionable leverage. It suggests the real power isn't just being aware of the dirt, but controlling the evidence, the compromat, that could silence or control others.
Which brings us to the question that always comes up, the one the public keeps asking. Q, is there really no list?
And the answer from the source is so insightful and deeply cynical.
Mm.
A, there's always a list. You're just not on the team that gets to see it.
Wow, so it's not about information not existing, it's about access and control. Deliberately withholding details from the public reinforces that theme of information as a weapon reserved for insiders. The swamp stays impenetrable to outsiders.
And the question we all ask, maybe with hope, maybe with weariness, when these scandals break, Q, why do people keep hoping this time will be different? The answer is kind of poignant. A, because everyone wants to believe the next scandal will be the final swamp fire.
We crave that catharsis, right? That final cleansing. That one event that exposes and eradicates the corruption. It's a deep human desire for justice.
But the reality, when asked the follow-up, Q, why does it never happen, is just as stark. A, because the swamp knows how to throw you a scapegoat and keep the machine running.
It's a sophisticated mechanism. Controlled release, diffusing pressure, managing outrage, giving the illusion of accountability without ever really reforming the underlying structures. It's a testament to the system's resilience, its adaptability. It gives you just enough to move on, but never enough to truly change it. To really get a handle on this enduring, almost mythical swamp, it helps to know the lingo, right? The terminology that defines its secret operations. Our sources offer this kind of grim glossary of sleaze.
Yeah, it's revealing. Take the Black Book itself, not just a ledger. Defined as the hand grenade that never goes off the way you think it will. It promises this huge explosion, a total dismantling, but somehow the actual fallout is always contained. Its full power never hits the system.
Then SDNY, the Southern District of New York, described chillingly as the vault where federal secrets go to rot.
Implying that certain legal bodies, instead of bringing exposure and justice, can actually become places where sensitive, politically charged details get buried, contained, just fade away, never see the light of day. Cases dismissed, investigations shelved.
And that term, that's become disturbingly common. Suicided. Not just suicide, defined as conveniently dead when the secret's worth more that way.
It speaks directly to that deep public suspicion that certain deaths, especially of people holding compromising info on the powerful, aren't what they seem. Suggests foul play masked by a convenient label.
Compromat is another key term, the true currency of the swamp. Not just dirt, but explicitly the real currency of the swamp dirt that buys loyalty.
Highlighting that compromising info isn't just for blackmail or exposure. More subtly, maybe more effectively, it's used to secure allegiance, compel silence, maintain control. Creates this network of mutual vulnerability among the powerful, compliance through shared secrets.
And finally, flight logs. Described as the ghost story version of the Black Book, more names, fewer consequences.
Right. Representing a darker, more elusive record, hinting at broader, maybe international connections. Yet, despite their potential scope, they seem to yield even less accountability than traditional client lists. They stay more in the realm of rumor and unproven speculation.
Now, let's think about how much society and just the nature of scandal itself has changed. Our sources note, once upon a time, an escort ring made grown men in the capital sweat bullets. That was enough to fill headlines and ruin careers. That was Palfrey's era.
Yeah, a conventional vice scandal, an affair, using an illicit service that caused major disruption, ended careers, dominated news. There was a clear moral line, and crossing it publicly had severe consequences.
But today, the landscape is totally different. Tinder buzzes like neon, sugar babies brag on TikTok. The idea of discreet illicit encounters feels almost quaint now in an age of casual hookups and blurred public-private lines.
Our source suggests, if a senator's name turned up on an escort receipt now, nobody would even blink. That kind of scandal on its own just doesn't have the same power, the same ability to outrage. Public tolerance, or maybe just weariness, has grown.
However, there's a crucial difference. What still resonates, what still stings, what grips the public, ignites real outrage, and points to that darker underbelly. Issues like the kids, the blackmail, the secret safes, and sealed flight logs.
Exactly. That's where the pattern of manipulation, abuse, systemic cover-up becomes too obvious to ignore. That's the dark core that hasn't been normalized. The exploitation and leverage transcend changing social norms. It cuts deeper than just sexual indiscretion. It's the criminal, coercive exploitation that still demands attention, even when the system tries to bury it.
Which brings us back, full circle, to that unending cycle of the cicada brood. Every cicada brood burrows up from the swamp mud every few decades. It's presented as natural, almost inevitable, a recurring eruption of uncomfortable truths.
And every single time, without fail, predictably, dishearteningly, the moralists scream they'll drain it while the roots sink deeper. The promises of reform, of cleansing the system, are loud and public, but the underlying mechanisms of the swamp, the deep corruption, the hidden power systems, only get more entrenched, more resilient, seemingly immune to real change. It's a cycle that feeds on public hope, then systematically crushes it.
So we've walked through these shadowy corridors of D.C., haven't we? From Deborah Jeane Palfrey's discreet operation right up to Jeffrey Epstein's terrifying global network of exploitation and leverage.
Yeah.
And what we've seen are these striking parallels, this recurring, almost rhythmic rhyme of history when it comes to power, secrets, and accountability in the Capitol. We've explored how information gets weaponized, how secrets are guarded with ruthless efficiency, and how the swamp just consistently protects its own, adapting its defenses with every new threat.
And as you, the listener, reflect on these patterns, on this recurring emergence of deep, uncomfortable truths, only for them to be kind of absorbed back into the system, we're going to leave you with one final, really provocative thought from our source material. Something to really chew on as you think about this cycle of scandal and supposed reform, about public hope versus systemic reality.
Yeah, think about this. It's not the scandal that ever dies. It's your hope that this time the list might actually matter.